Welcome to the Existential Empath Podcast. My name is Tanya, and I am an intuitive empath. My intention is to share valuable tips, tools, and techniques that I have learned so you can tap into your own inner healer naturally and intuitively. Welcome back, everyone. Today I have special guest Blair Abbe. Blair is an educator, consultant, and author of several award-winning books and dozens of articles on meditation, mindfulness, manifestation, and other higher consciousness-related topics. His fundamental message is that we are all eternal beings, souls, growing and evolving here on planet Earth. Welcome, Blair. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Oh, Tanya, thank you so much. I've been looking forward to our time together.
Yeah, so I wasn't real sure where to go, what direction to go with our show. So I called it Meditating to Manifesting, because you have so much knowledge that you can bring to this show. So I didn't really want to pinhole it or box it in at all. So
Yes.
I wanted to talk about how we can learn from our master teachers as well, because
Yes.
in many of your books, you kind of dive in, to some of those areas. And so,
Right.
Blair, many of us may believe that we're just here on planet Earth, living and working and then dying as these third dimensional beings, right? But
Yes.
many of us are beginning to awaken to our multidimensional aspects, the reality that we are having these infinite experiences in multiple realities all simultaneously. And this is giving us an opportunity to grow and advance as souls. And so, like I said in the intro, one of your main fundamental messages is to teach us how to remember that we are eternal beings. And so, Blair, what do you mean by that? What do you mean when you say we're all eternal beings? And why is this so important for us to remember?
Yes. Well, all of our master teachers, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, all of them talked about the fact that, Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is within you. All of them, I think, were very conscious, highly conscious, Christ-conscious beings, beings of who had various experiences that led them to realize that they were children of God, and that and their teachings were an outpicturing of what they knew, and that they weren't gods, they weren't people to be put on pedestals, but instead were just more advanced beings, elder brothers and sisters, if you will, who were kind of pointing the direction to having a similar experience to the ones that they had. And to my way of thinking, that's really what having soul contact is all about, is getting in touch with that higher consciousness part of yourself that each one of us has, and that is available at any time you want to turn your time and attention in that direction. Mm-hmm. Some people turn themselves in that direction because of a trauma. Others because it's just their time. Sometimes it's because a friend suggests or recommends something that they might be interested in. And I think we're maybe getting to a critical mass of people waking up sufficiently to where perhaps we will address the major challenges that are coming our way, which if we don't address them, the locomotive is just going to run over us unless we realize that we're all one as a species, and that if all of us don't survive, none of us are going to survive or certainly thrive. Then this is going to be a very troubled world. So
If it's not
again, I
already,
think
right?
we're all eternal beings. I think we're all souls who have come to inhabit this biomechanical vehicle that we inhabit, um, in order to learn and to grow. And that probably happens, at least from my perspective, over a period of lifetimes until you finally wake up and begin to realize who you are and begin to have some sense of your connection to the all, or to God, if you will.
Yeah. And it always reminds me of, you get a brand new iPhone or something, and you don't know all the bells and whistles on it. And that's how I feel in our body sometimes.
Yes.
We're learning this mechanism, and
Right.
we haven't even touched the surface of what we can do, with this technology that we inhabit here on planet Earth. And so,
Yes.
Blair, what are your thoughts around, you said that the master teachers, they were here, they were at a higher consciousness. What are your thoughts around, do we come to Earth as a school? Do we come here to learn? What do you feel about that?
Right. Well, I think there are many, many, many beings who would like to come to planet Earth in order to engage with one of the more difficult planets in the universe to inhabit or to incarnate on. But as with all difficult situations that we have, we learn more under difficult circumstances than we learn under easy circumstances.
Mhm.
So this is just one of those places where you can advance dramatically if you choose to, by incarnating on planet Earth and by coming to realize who we are as beings, more than just three-dimensional animals who haven't been around very long. It's not been very long since we were, in caves and huddled around a fire, in our evolution and our growth as spiritual beings.
Yeah, we're like the toddlers of the solar system, right?
Well, it certainly seems so, especially given the mentality that sometimes we devolve into.
It makes me wonder if there's a waiting list to get to Earth, kind of like if you're trying to go to your favorite amusement park or somewhere, you're like, there's this really long waiting list, and everybody's like, I want to go to Earth so I could advance,
Right,
I
right.
want to experience this.
Well, then, and the problem is, of course, that when we get here, we agree to not remember where we just came from. And we're indoctrinated, or I think even hypnotized into thinking that we're three-dimensional animals, three-dimensional beings, limited capability and capacity. And nobody, it seems, except for a few, like master teachers and others, really know about that. And therefore, we're not really taught and have to somehow or another discover a path to that inner self, to that higher self, to that higher consciousness self that we are, and a consciousness that is waiting for us to wake up and turn to it, because it wants to be our partner in this lifetime on this planet and allow us to have that eternal experience in addition to having the human experience.
Absolutely. And so you've mentioned it a few times, higher consciousness. Let's go
Yes.
into, a little bit of detail about that, Blair. What does
Okay.
that mean when you say higher consciousness?
Right. When you do a meditation, and when you are calm enough to where your thoughts subside, you get a sense of yourself as being an expanded being, a being that is one with your brothers and sisters, one with humanity, one with the universe. So that's what I mean by higher consciousness, and that each one of us has a soul that is our partner through eternity, that is just waiting for us to wake up to it and to allow it to come into our lives. to allow it to participate in our lives. It's just waiting and will immediately respond to any indication that the human has turned itself in that direction and is open to the possibility of having soul contact. And that's a lot of what I talk about. It's a lot about what my meditation methods and so forth are about, is making soul contact. That, again, the higher consciousness part of ourselves, the expanded part of ourselves that we all know is there, because we've all had experience at some time or another of a sense that there's more that to us than meets the eye.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know for me, when I, really, it's like a phone call, it's like, okay, my soul is picked up on the other end and I can feel that in every cell of my body, right? It's just, I feel the expansion. I feel the downloads of information coming through. I get goosebumps. And so,
Yes.
In your experience, Blair, when you're in that deep meditative state, and
Yes.
I often will guide people through this in my hypnosis sessions through that theta state,
Right.
what types of experiences have you had where okay, I have made that connection. I can really
Yes.
feel that connection with that higher consciousness.
Right. I think it'd be fair to say that my first soul contact, even though I've been doing yoga for many years, more than 45 years now, and meditating, it wasn't really until about 7 years ago or so that I had a personally traumatic experience and began to journal for healing. And in the process of doing that journaling and taking a deep dive into my meditation practice, as I wrote, I began to feel some of what you were talking about a little bit ago, that sort of tingling and that heightened sense of awareness. And the words that just started coming through my fingers onto the keyboard weren't my words. I mean, they weren't my understandings. They were new information, downloads, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was my initial experience with it. And as I've moved on and grown since then, what I find myself is having daily contact with my higher self, with my soul, and having ongoing conversations with that presence that's right there, almost on your sitting on your shoulder, just providing life, providing information, providing a presence that allows me just to relax and to abide and to be and to let it go before and smooth out the path, if you will. So that's my soul sort of talks to me on a daily basis, and certainly has come through my writings. And when I talk about manifestation, for example, I have a process that I call the best possible outcome. And the best possible outcome process involves that soul contact, in which I say to my higher self, which I call High C. High C.
I know. I was like, why don't we name our higher selves? Like, George, come on down. Like, it's almost like dating, right? In the
That's
beginning,
right.
you're dating and you have limited contact, but as you begin to foster a relationship, then you realize that your higher self is there all the time. Kind of like if you're in a relationship with a loved one,
That's right. Definitely a loved one that loves infinitely, me and who I am, in all my flaws. So I ask for the best possible outcome as it relates to my conversation this afternoon, which I did a little while ago with Tanya in our podcast interview, and then pause, take a breath, get a sense that spirit has moved, and then offer a thank you for participation in my life. Now, that sounds really simple, but it's actually quite profound in that it's first an ask, and it's a ask or an opening up to higher consciousness and related to some particular issue, whether it's a parking place, a conversation, getting up in front of a group or a meeting, whatever, but not dictating the best possible outcome, not saying, this is what my ego says should be the outcome, the BMW appearing in my driveway tomorrow, or whatever that happens to be with, manifestation practices. But the best possible outcome as it relates to my transportation needs. Pausing, taking a breath, and basically turning it over to spirit, turning it over to soul, to offer, to bring forward the best possible outcome for my growth and my evolution, because it knows better than I do what I need, and will often bring forward that which is unexpected. And then thanking, obviously, gratitude. And then just let it be, just turn it over, and observe, and just stay alert, watch, observe for the outcome, and see what happens. So those are the kinds of soul contact experiences that I've had, and the best possible outcomes. You can use it for anything, anytime, anywhere.
Yeah, that's powerful. Thank you for walking us through that process, because that was going to be one of my questions. I wanted to know, how to do that. And I feel like I'm doing that. That's exactly. And you talked about asking, and Jesus said this, or it was said in the Bible, ask and you shall receive, right? And so what does Jesus and Buddha say about meditating? Let's talk a little bit about our master teachers and what they talked about meditating and manifesting for that, matter. And is this documented?
Well, they all meditated. I mean, there's stories of all of them going off, being by themselves, getting in contact with with their higher selves. And clearly, from what they said, they were enlightened. I mean, the words are unmistakable. There's no, in my mind, no way that you could say these were not enlightened people. Their words have been passed down through the centuries. Unfortunately, we turned what they had to say into religions and dogma and stuff that wasn't intended. But again, I think they were trying to point us into the direction of our growth based on what they found out from their own growth, and that they were just more advanced humans in their ability to then turn around and teach what they know. And I'm convinced that meditation was one of the practices that in one way or another, whether it was prayer or meditation, I like to think of prayer as really being silent prayer, where you're listening, not talking, where you're receiving, not telling God what it is that you need and want. God's not a Santa Claus, that you can just ask, for whatever you want under the tree tomorrow and have it occur. I think our higher selves and the all in general wants to have communion or conversation with us, and has much to say to us if we'll get quiet enough to listen to that still small voice.
Absolutely. And, Jesus, he left for 40 days and 40 nights, right? Correct. And so during that time, I'm sure that's when he would connect, with his higher self. And I'm sure as ascended teachers, they like you were talking about, you begin to build that relationship with that higher consciousness where it begins to, you become it, and
it really begins to you merge with it.
Yes.
Begin to get a sense of oneness or presence that my soul and I are one.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And when you're having those, in that meditative state, or just that download of information, I know I'll wake up at the middle of the night and just have information coming to me. And I'm like,
Yes.
oh, where did that come from?
Right,
And then it just kind of, I feel the expansion there. I feel the presence of,
Right.
of my soul, there. And I know it's always there, but it feels palpable,
Yeah. There are times times that are stronger.
Yeah, and you're like, whoa,
and
my soul is big. Like that goes out, goes out really far. And so it's also too, I know I've done some research on the book of Enoch, which was eliminated from the Bible, and that talks a lot about manifesting and goes into detail about that. And this was information that was pulled, for obvious reasons. They didn't really want us to tune into the, the realization of what we are. And so it's a very interesting book, because it does go into detail about what you talked about, asking and then receiving, and, how to utilize visualization, how to focus our energy on things and bring them into our third dimensional reality, to actually bring something from an energetic standpoint into like a matter, and so it's really fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's fun to learn all of this, right? And all those teachings are right in front of us. I watched a video yesterday. It was actually kind of intense and kind of deep, but it talks about how actually Christ is an oil. The word Christ in Greek means oil. And this oil goes up our 33 vertebrae, Jacob's ladder, and then it goes up to our pineal gland, which excretes a golden substance called the honey. And then our pituitary gland, which excretes a white milky substance called the milk and the honey. And so there's this whole concept that the Bible is actually about our body. And it's like, whoa, I went down that rabbit hole yesterday, and I'm like, oh, I've got to go dive a little deeper down that rabbit hole, because it was very intense.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of teaching in our, spiritual, scriptural books and other teachings, which, if you're not looking at it from a 5-dimensional perspective, you miss the point. I mean, I never heard, coming up in a Christian church, I never heard a sermon or any conversation about the idea that kingdom of heaven is within you. And the reason that that's true, I think, is because nobody knew what that meant.
Yeah.
So it's not unless you look at it from a different perspective that you begin to see that what our master teachers were trying to say, that underneath the obvious is the not so obvious, but if you're not able to view it from that perspective, you miss it.
Yeah. And I think too, it's all based off of our frequency and where we're at that time. It's part of our awakening process. It's never going to stop. It's not like we're awakened and we're like, hey, we're done. I mean, it's like, it's just we just keep expanding and expanding and expanding. And I think, when you're born into that and you see things, oftentimes we take what we learn from our parents or, from others, and then we hold that as our own belief system too.
Exactly. And they don't know. Our teachers don't know. Our parents don't know. Our spiritual teachers. I mean, very few know. And therefore we're all, just walking around in as 3-dimensional hypnotized biomechanical vehicles.
We're in one big matrix, just walking around like, what are we doing? It's funny because I've been really just focusing on, that, like, just noticing things like weird glitches, weird things going on. And I'm like, those are things I didn't pick up on before. And I would have this, I remember as a kid, if I was reading something, sometimes I would notice my eyes would go back and forth really fast, like 3 or 4 times. And I didn't really know what it was. I just thought it was a twitch. But now I'm beginning to think it was my higher self kind of doing a little reset or a little reprogram. And it doesn't happen all the time, but I do notice it. And when I notice it, it's usually when I'm reading something relevant, something that could be of substance, for me. And I do
Interesting.
notice my eyes will just kind of shudder back and forth.
Uh-huh.
And then now I'm recognizing it's almost like when you see a synchronicity or you
Yeah.
know, you experience something. It's like, interesting. What is my higher
Right.
self doing to my avatar here? You know, am I getting a little upgrade? Like what's going on when that happens?
Uh,
So it is kind of funny.
well, you have to be quiet to notice.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so you've written several books. So can we talk
Yes.
a little bit about some of your books, Blair?
Sure.
You've written several about meditation, mindfulness.
Right.
If you want to, share the titles and maybe
Yes.
share a little bit about them.
Happy to. Well, the first book is on the amazing benefits of meditation, and it really goes into all the research that has been done on meditation and the benefits of meditation, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual benefits. And about 3,500 studies have been done that show all manner of physical, emotional, and mental conditions, ailments, respond positively to meditation. And then I go into why does meditation work? What is it about meditation that enables healing to occur as a result of just getting quiet and being still? The second book is called The Meditation Book, and that's on sit-down meditation techniques, including the one that I developed called Higher Consciousness Meditation. And it's a meditation technique that takes you directly into, well, let's say it a different way, bypasses mind training, which is how most meditation training is done. The mind doesn't want to be trained. It rebels constantly wants to, be talking and be thinking about the past, or thinking about the future, and planning and being afraid, all of that stuff. So this sort of bypasses trying to tame the wild horse and takes you directly to a sense of higher consciousness and who you really are. The mindfulness book is on mindfulness techniques and offers, maybe 60 or 65 different mindfulness sayings or techniques that you can use for different situations. One of the most powerful of which is just peace, be still.
Yeah.
As a way of beginning a meditation practice, as a way of just before you go and offer a talk, go into a difficult situation, just to calm yourself down, take a deep breath. The next book is actually a book of poetry. And I never intended to be a writer, and I certainly never intended to be a poet. But
your higher self had a different plan.
Sometimes that's right. It's just like, okay, well, and sometimes saying it in poetry is the best way to say it. It's amazing.
It's kind of like rapping.
It is. It is rapping.
A little lighter.
Absolutely. And then there's the manifestation book. My next book is on health and wellness.
Oh, great.
From a spiritual perspective, and that'll come out in the fall. So I love writing. I have a newsletter that I do a blog post every couple of weeks, and it's always what's going on, what's new, what new realizations have I had, and so forth. I love writing. I've either given away or sold almost 25,000 books, which
That's great.
gives some indication that there's some resonance out there to the work that I've done. And they've hit #1 bestsellers on Amazon from time to time in the categories and so forth. And I would like to offer everybody a copy of my mindfulness book if they want to go to my website, and I'm sure you'll have that in the show notes, where they can get a free copy of this book, the mindfulness book. Now I use sit down meditation in the morning, and I use sit down meditation in the evening, and I use mindfulness practices during the day. So during the day, just to remember
Yes.
who I am, just to remember or apply a particular mindfulness technique to a particular situation in order to raise my consciousness. You were talking about vibrational frequency a while ago, to raise my vibrational frequency. And I think, more than anything, that just I mean, what I'd like to be is constantly, continuously,
In that
and
state.
in that state. But to bring myself back to it over and over and over again, more and more frequently, and to use triggers, of which mindfulness techniques are one trigger. The Jewish people, when they go in and out of the door, they have a little thing on the doorstop. Well, I put a little angel on my doorstop, and I touch the little angel as I go in and out. It's just a remembrance. It's just something to remind me to remember who I am, besides my ego bursting through the opening and out into the world without a single thought for who I am, other than I'm charging ahead.
I love that. It's like a little amulet or a talisman or something that I have that in my car, because I just visualize I'm always protected, and I have this little thing hanging, and it reminds me immediately to just, be grateful that I'm safe and that I'm protected. And it just reminds me of that. Yeah. I like that.
So all you need to do is have some of these techniques or tools. And I see myself as a tool maker as much as anything.
Yeah.
You just need to have some of these tools around, and then you just need to remind yourself from time to time to use the tools.
I think I feel like I'm a tool maker too, Blair. Like, I learn these tips and tools, and then I forget them, and then I go back in a spiral, and then I'm like, oh, I forgot all about that tip. I'm going to use that again, but I use it in a different way than I did before.
Yeah. Like upward spiral, where you're raising the vibrational frequency of it.
Absolutely. And so where can people, what's your website? Where can people find your books? And do you offer any other services other than your books?
Yes. So my books are available at Amazon. Blair Abey will get you to my series, Higher Consciousness series. The website is highcmeditation.com. So that's HI, capital C, like the note high C, meditation.com. And that's where you can get a copy of the book. I'm just beginning to put together some classes and courses, so people who want to find out about that kind of thing can get access to that. And I'll be doing some coaching in the near future as well.
Great. That's wonderful. Well, this has been a really fun show, Blair. Is there any tip or tool that you can share to help people relax? As we end the show, is there a tool you can share?
Well, I think it's just to take a sacred breath every once in a while, just to and get a sense of expansiveness. And meditation is not that complicated. People make it complicated and worry about it and struggle over it, but it's really nothing more than just relaxing into the moment and just being aware.
Yeah, and that's powerful. I mean, we overlook the breath. If we can all just be reminded right now, right, Blair, you just reminded everyone right now to take a deep breath. And if they can do that, then that relaxes the nervous system. Yeah, absolutely.
And it does relax you. I mean, just, because the short breaths, to the body, that says danger.
Yeah.
A nice, even breath says, I'm okay.
Absolutely.
All is well.
I am calm. I am okay. All is well. Well, thanks, Blair. This has been such a pleasure to have you on the show. And I know we dove into a variety of topics today, and that's kind of what I was expecting that we would do, because I knew you have a lot of knowledge in these areas. So I do appreciate you coming on the show and sharing all your wisdom. It seems like you've been writing a lot of books, and that's great. So for all of you out there, go check out Blair's website and jump on Amazon, buy one of his books. And I appreciate you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you. This has been a fun experience.
You deserve to navigate your life in alignment with health, happiness, and abundance. To learn more about the services that I provide, including Beyond Quantum Healing Hypnosis, EFT tapping, and the Emotion Code, visit my website at www.theexistentialempath.com.